There we go. Thank you, Hazel. Great. So, as Daria said, I'm the National Officer for LGBT plus equalities at UNISON. And today I will be talking about what UNISON does to ensure LGBT plus members are safe at work and can be themselves at work, but also how local government service users and those that identify as LGBT plus, how we go about making sure that services are inclusive for everyone. So if we go on to the next slide, just a little bit about UNISON. We are the biggest union in the United Kingdom with over 1.3 million members. And UNISON has a really long history of winning on equality, as you saw with the Glasgow equal pay dispute during the break. That core value runs through everything that we do at UNISON, and we continue to fight against all discrimination wherever we encounter it, and regularly help our members challenge unequal and unfair treatment, including all forms of prejudice and discrimination, racism, bullying and harassment, and of course, as you've seen, equal pay. If you go on to the next slide, we have done extensive research on the impact that austerity has had on LGBT plus workers and service users within local government. Austerity has been a huge problem in the United Kingdom for many, many years under our conservative Tory government, and it's not getting any better. And as you can see from our research, LGBT workers and service users tell us that there's greater financial hardship from redundancies, real-term pay cuts, and challenges to benefit rules, problems finding LGBT plus friendly accommodation where they feel safe and able to be themselves, a reduction in sexual health and mental health services that address specific LGBT plus needs, and greater feelings of marginalization and invisibility as specialist LGBT plus services and support have gradually disappeared from local government services within the UK over particularly the last 10 years. Furthermore, public funding for LGBT plus services was considered more important because prejudice and discrimination among some of our members of the public thought to make funding through charities more likely. And what's more is our LGBT plus members have felt that LGBT plus issues and concerns were treated as less important in their workplace. It was simply viewed as a nice thing to do, and it could be dropped in harder times. So what does UNISON do to counter these? And one thing that we do is we give our LGBT plus members a voice through our self-organized structure. So UNISON is has a pretty, I think, unique self-organization model whereby our LGBT plus members vote and are the voice of all of our LGBT plus work. And there's three ways that they can be involved in this. So first, at a branch level, we have a growing network of branch level LGBT plus groups that discuss local terms and conditions. They support individual LGBT plus members with issues at work and debate issues affecting the LGBT plus community in their community. Branch groups are jointly help feed into the regional groups, and there are 12 regional LGBT plus groups in the UNISON structure, and they all meet regularly. They represent LGBT plus members at a regional level, arrange training for activists for LGBT plus equality, and work with other self-organized groups such as young members, Black members, disabled members. Each regional group elects 2 members who represent the LGBT plus members at the national level. And as I said, there's 2 seats for each regional LGBT plus group, which works to advise our National Executive Council and our service group executives. There is also seats for our bi and trans representatives, and also for Black and disabled LGBT plus representatives, because here at UNISON, we believe that intersectional issues need to be addressed through specific caucuses. So if we go on to the next slide, so we do take the fight to workplaces, and creating workplaces free of discrimination, as we said, is a core value of UNISON. We negotiate and bargain with employers on a range of LGBT plus issues, and we have a number of fact sheets that will be put into the chat later on, and bargaining guides that help local government workplaces become more LGBT plus inclusive. And these include specific guides for our LGBT plus members, specific guidance on bi plus members and trans people, and how hate crime is a workplace issue. And as I said, we negotiate these through collective agreements and in local government policies. So if we go on to the next slide. So at a local level, you can see that there's a lot of things that our LGBT plus activists do within their workplace. So from raising issues affecting LGBT plus workers and supporting individual members in their workplaces when the need arises, to raising awareness of LGBT plus rights in the workplace. And a lot of our activists, we have training modules that we give out to our activists, who then go and train their work colleagues. It's a self-organized structure in that sense. Also, we have our members themselves put motions to our conferences. So we have our big LGBT plus conference happening in a couple of weeks, where our members will place motions to that conference, and that will dictate the LGBT plus work for the next year. And we have usually around 300 to 400 representatives at that conference that guide our work, which is pretty special, I think. So if we go on to the next slide, thank you, Hazel. There's just one other aspect to our work that I just wanted to highlight, and that's in procurement. So one of the motions that went forward in our 2019 conference was to look at how pride committees, so committees that organise pride marches in local governments, procure their merchandise. Because, as we know, what our members felt was that you can only show true international solidarity if you look at all parts of the supply chain and ensuring that each LGBT plus worker within that supply chain is protected. So our guide gives a brief background on worker and LGBT plus protection in global supply chains, and questions whether brands releasing pride collections show true solidarity, or if they just want to capture the so-called pink pound or pink washing, pink money, however you want to describe it. Our guide includes a useful checklist for anyone that's sourcing merchandise for pride marches, and it gives a handy guide for pride committees planning local celebrations, to employers procuring rainbow lanyards, and it will help us as UNISON use our purchasing power even to make change within those contexts as well. So that's something that we're really quite proud of. And unfortunately, in the context of COVID over the last couple of years, it's something that we haven't really been able to implement, but hoping next year we can help advise Pride committees and local governments that are procuring Pride merchandise for their own Pride celebrations, usually next June, how they can do that ethically. Okay, I think that's about it. Thank you very much.
Concluyo.